Today we are joined by senior advocate Jayna Kothari. Welcome, ma'am. I'll start my question with you about the queer-friendly workplace. So, what is the current situation of the queer community in terms of the harassment they face in the workplaces?
So presently, workplaces are trying a lot. Many workplaces are trying to be queer friendly, but on the ground, there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed. One of the issues that a lot of people from the queer community face is harassment at work. And one of the things that employers address to some extent, though not fully well, is sexual harassment at the workplace that women may face. Even this is not implemented effectively. So, the sexual harassment that the queer community faces is not at all addressed. There isn't a policy. Most employers don't have a policy to address queer inclusivity, which should include provisions that there should be a grievance mechanism in case any members from the LGBTQI community face any kind of harassment or any kind of difficulties. There should be a grievance mechanism. So, for that, you need a policy. I think most employers don't yet have it. And then when they do face harassment, they don't know how to address it or they refuse to address it. So, it is one thing to say that we want to make our workplaces queer friendly and we want to have members from the LGBTQI community working with us. But if you're not going to take steps to address issues that come up of harassment when they do join, then they're going to leave, and so that is a real issue that employers need to address.
So, when we talk about companies, be it government sector or the multinational companies, they are generally not queer friendly. So, according to you, like, is it because there is a lack of legislation or because of the empathy, they're not ready to welcome people from the community?
See, in the government sector, there's absolutely no recognition at all of the queer community or members of the LGBTQI community joining the workforce. There's absolutely no recognition at all. Multinational companies, in the last few years after 377 was decriminalized, there's been, at least in some multinational corporations, a big push to be inclusive. A lot of them take out activities during the Pride Month. They have a lot of talks, panels, groups within the companies to make it a queer-friendly workplace. Yeah, so in multinational companies, I think after the last, from the last 4 5 years, after we've had the 377 decriminalization, there's been a big push to be queer inclusive. They take part in the Pride campaigns. They do a lot of activities during Pride Month. They try and have a lot of conversations at workplaces about queer issues and LGBTQI rights. But I feel to some extent a lot of that is just window dressing. I mean, you really need to, if you really want to be queer inclusive, you have to take steps to hire people irrespective of their sexual orientation or gender identity and not discriminate. And then the non discrimination should be not just at the time of hiring because you want to look as if you're inclusive, but also make changes in the workplace. That when
True.
you do have people from the LGBTQI community join, how are you going to ensure that they're not going to be discriminated at work? So, one of the forms of discrimination is harassment. It could be sexual harassment, it could be other forms of harassment. So, if that does happen, what is the company going to do about it? Are they going to put in place some mechanism? Are they going to take action to stop the harassment and discrimination? So, we need to walk the talk. It's good to be kind of sound queer friendly and inclusive
Yes, ma'am.
during Pride Month, but are we taking this forward?
Exactly. So, have you been, aware of any transgender person or any member of the LGBTQI community who's faced harassment, like any case you are aware of?
lot of cases. We represent at the Center for Law and Policy Research a lot of members from the trans community. They face a lot of harassment at work, and this is both in government employment and in private companies. We have situations where their preferred name and gender is not recorded in their employment records. So we've had cases where in government employment, a trans person who has transitioned and changed her name and gender, despite requesting that, her correct name and gender be recorded in the government records, the
Hmm.
government department is refusing to do it. We've had to go to court for this. This is
Okay.
a form of harassment, isn't it? Because the
Obviously,
employer is saying we are not going to call you or recognize your
their
uh,
original identity.
your decided self-determined name and gender identity.
Yes, ma'am.
So that is not happening. In a lot of cases in private companies, members of the trans community face sexual harassment. They've had to leave employment when they need leave on certain occasions for their gender transition surgeries. They are not given any accommodation. So there are different forms of harassment or discrimination that they face, and many people who don't have any other option and are not able to deal with it have to drop out of work. Others have to take it up legally, but how many can afford it? And how
Okay.
many will find assistance to do that? And the others just have to bear it.
So when we talk about the Transgender Person Protection Act, so under that act, are they being protected with such kind of a cases of harassment?
So the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act does have a provision that there shall be no discrimination at workplaces and there
Okay.
will be no harassment at workplaces. But the act is very new. It is
Hmm.
only a 29 act and it's not implemented yet. I think a lot of employers, government and private employers, are still not aware that there are provisions on non discrimination at the workplace. And so there are no steps being taken to implement this. So we have to work to push towards this implementation.
So this act basically protects the transgender person. So when we talk about the whole of the community, the LGBTQIA, so according to you, there should be another act where everyone, like each and every person, be it a lesbian person, be it a gay person, they also have the right when they'll be harassed or face discrimination, they'll also have a place to go and get some solutions out of it.
Yes. So, I mean, the Trans Persons Act is, of course, only covering transgender persons. That also we are facing challenges on implementation. But of course, the other members of the LGBTQI community do not have a legislation to cover it. In fact, one of the issues we are raising, I believe there should be an equality law that covers all categories of persons who face discrimination. Certainly members of the LGBTQI community, but others as well. We know that at employment, in education institutions, and all in many other situations, groups do face discrimination. And right now, especially in private employment, there is nothing that prohibits such kinds of discrimination being carried out against members of the LGBTQ community. So we do need legislation to address it, and we don't have that yet.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for joining us. That'll be
Thank
all.
you.